All right, so we're taking a deep dive into this news article about the Sapelo Island dock collapse. It's one of those stories that, you read it and you want to know more.
Definitely.
Like it's not just the headlines, right?
Yeah, it stays with you.
Yeah, and I think that's why we're here, right? We're going beyond the surface. We're trying to get to the heart of what makes this event so tragic,
Hmm.
and especially its connection to the island's Gullah-Geechee community.
Yeah, a community close to my heart. And I know this one really hit hard.
I can only imagine, and to think this happened during a fall celebration. The article talks about at least 7 people gone, multiple others injured, a whole section of the ferry dock just buckled. I mean,
It's just unimaginable.
helicopters searching, sonar pings,
Yeah.
echoing in the water, trying to find people. It's
Yeah.
hard to fathom that chaos and the heartbreak.
It really is.
Yeah.
And thinking about what a gangway means for a place like Sapelo, it's like their lifeline. It's the connection to the mainland. It's often bustling with people. And so this wasn't just a structural failure. This was a collapse at a very
Sure.
critical point of connection for this whole community.
Right, and a collapse that sadly kind of, brings some of these deeper issues that the Gullah-Geechee community has been dealing with for years to the forefront. The article touches on their history and traditions, and then there's this mention of their shrinking population and the fight over land ownership. What's happening there?
We're right. I mean, this event really brings those simmering tensions right out into the open. And you have to understand, the Gullah-Geechee people, they're descendants of enslaved Africans
Hmm.
brought to these coastal areas in Sapelo Island. It's like a cultural time capsule for them. Generations of tradition, even their language, preserved through this relative isolation.
Wow, so that isolation must make their connection to the land even more profound, right?
Absolutely, and that's why these land ownership struggles are so critical, because the article highlights this sharp increase in property taxes and some zoning changes that are being imposed by McIntosh County. And it's hitting the Gullah-Geechee community particularly hard.
Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit because
Uh-huh.
the article kind of glossed over the specifics of the tax increases. What kind of numbers are we talking about here?
Well, get this. For some families, their property taxes have more than quadrupled in recent years.
Quadrupled.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Well, imagine suddenly having to pay thousands of dollars more each year just to hold on to land your family has called home for generations.
That's a staggering increase. No wonder there are protests and lawsuits mentioned in the article. What about these zoning changes? How are those impacting things?
One detail that really stood out to me was the county doubling the allowable size for new homes. In the area where many Gullah-Geechee families live, it's called hog hummock. And, on the surface, you might think, okay, bigger homes, what's the big deal? But the reality is this pushes up property values across the board. Even if your home stays the same size, your taxes are calculated based on the rising value of the land around you.
So you're basically saying that they're being priced out of their own community.
Exactly. And it's crucial to remember that for the Gullah-Geechee people, land isn't just about economics. It's intertwined with their history, their spiritual beliefs, their very identity. Their ancestors worked this land. Their stories are rooted here.
So it's not just about losing homes, it's potentially losing a whole culture.
It's heartbreaking.
What a complex and heartbreaking situation. Yeah, it's like they're trapped between a rock and a hard place,
Right.
wanting to preserve their heritage, their way of life, but then these external pressures make it almost impossible to stay on the very land that holds all their history.
You said it, and it gets even more complicated because the article even mentions, concerns about developers coming in, scooping up land, maybe even eyeing those larger home sizes that are now allowed.
Oh, so you have this perfect storm brewing, right? Rising taxes, pushing out these longtime residents, and then you got developers potentially, swooping in to capitalize on the very changes that are hurting the Gullah-Geechee community.
Exactly, and that's why this dock collapse feels so symbolic. It's this stark reminder of just how precarious their position is. They're fighting to hold on to their land, their heritage, their whole way of life, and it's an uphill battle for sure. The article doesn't offer easy answers, and frankly, there aren't any. But it really underscores the need for greater awareness, I think, for understanding the unique challenges that communities like the Gullah-Geechee face.
Yeah, because this isn't just a Sapelo Island problem, is it? This feels like a microcosm of what's happening in so many places. This tension between progress and development and preserving cultural heritage.
Absolutely. How do we balance the need for, economic growth with the responsibility to protect vulnerable communities and their traditions? There's this quote in the article from a Gullah-Geechee elder that really stuck with me. They said, "Progress is good, but not if it costs you your soul." I think that speaks volumes about what's at stake here.
Wow, yeah, that's powerful. It makes you wonder what can be done. The article mentions lawsuits, but is that enough? Are there other solutions being discussed?
Well, some community leaders are advocating for things like land trusts, which could help protect Gullah-Geechee land from development and rising property values. Imagine a system where the land is held in trust, ensuring that it remains affordable and accessible for generations to come.
That sounds promising. Are there any examples of land trusts that have been successful in similar situations?
Yeah, actually there are. The article mentions the Hog Hammock Community Association. They've been acquiring land on Sapelo Island to preserve it for the Gullah-Geechee community. It's a small step, but it's significant.
Yeah, it's inspiring to hear that amidst all these challenges, right, there are people fighting for solutions for a way to bridge that gap between progress and preservation.
It speaks to their resilience. They face adversity throughout their history,
Mm.
and they continue to adapt and find ways to protect what's theirs.
Their story really makes you think about our own roles in all of this. Like, as individuals, do we have a responsibility to educate ourselves about these issues, to support communities like the Gullah-Geechee?
That's the question, isn't it? What does it mean to be a responsible citizen? In a world where progress often comes at a cost, and whose stories are we choosing to listen to? Whose histories are we choosing to remember?
You've given us so much to think about today. This deep dive into the Sapelo Island dock collapse, it's really opened my eyes to the complexities of this situation and the challenges faced by the Gullah-Geechee community.
Yeah, it really makes you realize, it's more than just a news story. It's about resilience. It's about cultural survival.
Hmm.
This fight for recognition and the right to exist on your own terms. It really is. And it reminds us that, progress isn't always a straight line. Sometimes it kind of loops back, you know, and it forces us to confront the consequences of our choices and to ask ourselves, at what cost?
You've given our listeners a lot to unpack today. This deep dive into the Sapelo Island dock collapse wasn't just about, understanding the mechanics of what happened. It was about going deeper into the heart of a community, their history, and their ongoing struggle for preservation.
Yeah, it's a story that I think stays with you. It makes you really look beyond the surface and consider, the human stories woven into every event.
Stories that deserve to be heard, stories that deserve to be understood. So to our listener out there, we encourage you. Delve deeper into the world of the Gullah-Geechee people. Their story is a testament to the enduring power of culture, of resilience and the fight for self-determination. It's a story that will challenge you. It will inspire you. And I think it will leave you with a really profound appreciation for the incredible tapestry of human experience.